Good question with respect to Board of Education expenditures, and I'm noticing the lapsing funds in the Board of Education line. Is there someone on your team who can comment on that, please?
I'm not sure if they're on the call.
I saw the recording as well.
Michelle is on.
I'm on.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning. Are you referring to our forecasted balance?
And yes, I'm comparing your year-to-date as to budget. Actually, what is your forecast for Board of Education?
Our forecasted balance for the end of this fiscal year will be around $175,000 to $185,000. Primarily, we saw a savings in our salary and benefit lines. That's really what's driving our reserve for this year.
And with respect to the town or municipal expenditures, are there any assumptions surrounding use of stimulus dollars to meet these expenditures? Or do you have reflecting any of the municipal CRF that the state provided?
I don't believe any of that is reflected in the budget, no.
Very good. Any other questions on the monthly financial report?
I just want to give you an update, Secretary, to make you aware that the Board of Ed had planned to provide the town with their a surplus and add to the fund balance at the end of the year, and at that time it was projecting $180K.
Thank you, Ken. All right, well, it looks like you're on a good track with the current fiscal year and making progress in that regard. So if there are no further questions or discussion on the financial report, we will conclude our work with the town of Sprague today. Any other questions or discussion from our members? Okay. All right, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. We'll move on to the City of West Haven. Mayor Rossi's on with Frank, Slinsky, and Martine. In the materials, first agenda is a subcommittee update. We have a written update that has been provided in the meeting materials, which is focused primarily on the 5-year plan. The subcommittee did meet earlier this morning to review and make a recommendation concerning the 5-year plan. I'm going to turn it over to Julian to give us an update on where the subcommittee landed today and the major components of the plan. Julian?
Yes, the subcommittee reviewed the plan. After having reviewed it at previous meetings, the subcommittee had asked for the city to take a look at the potential impact for making assumption changes in the fire pension fund actuarial evaluation that is in the process of being completed now, and specifically to identify whether those assumption changes were likely to have an impact on the required pension contributions through the 5-year planning period, because the 5-year plan pension contributions were built on long-range projections from the last valuation report. The city reached out to Milliman to get some guidance on what the likely impact of those assumption changes might be, which were specifically a reduction in the discount rate from 6.75% to 6.5%, and an extension of the amortization period from 12 years to 15 years. The city completed that analysis, which we'll get into further detail on in the discussion around the 5-year plan that was presented to the subcommittee, and the subcommittee, by a vote of 5-1, voted to recommend to the full MARB approval of the 5-year plan contingent upon city council approval.
Great, that's a perfect segue into review, discussion, and possible action on the 5-year plan. As Julian indicated, the plan has been reviewed thoroughly over several meetings. the city's been very responsive for follow-up information requests from the subcommittee. The plan is sound with respect to its assumptions surrounding state revenues for West Haven, for the top of the city. I just want to note that the budget does provide an estimated $3 million of additional non-education aid, and that is a part of the tier pilot approved by the legislature and will be signed by the governor. In addition, West Haven First Center is slated to receive an additional $1.7 million, Allentown over $700,000, and West Shore Fire over $400,000. So any assumptions about the use of state aid and potential reliance on additional funds in the state budget certainly sound decisions and do not pose any concerns from OPM's perspective. From an unbalanced perspective, we continue to see both the general fund and fire fund had negative balances at the end of fiscal year 2018. General fund balance is expected to exceed 5% by the end of fiscal year 2023 and will reach more than 6% by the end of the 5-year plan. So very sound progress on fund balance. Fire fund balance is over 20% and certainly in a very strong position. We believe that the revenue projections are based on modest assumptions. Baseline growth is very conservative, 1%, growth of less than 1/10 of 1% of the grid list, with some adjustments for known development projects. The city clearly is pushing hard for economic development and recognizing the expiration of tax abatement agreements. The city has reflected savings on the debt service side of the house as bonds are being paid off pertaining to police pension. And with respect to the fire pension valuation, Julian, you touched upon it, but if there's anything else that you want to go through for the board to make sure they're comfortable with the assumptions, please feel free to do so.
I think the summary table that was provided lays out the analysis effectively. The estimated impact of adjusting the discount rate was projected for the 5-year period, and it determined that the pension contributions that the city currently has programmed into the 5-year plan would accommodate a change to the discount rate, again, based on the estimates that Milliman provided for preliminary analysis. If the city were to also make the change, or if the actuarial firm also changed the assumption for the amortization period, that would have a favorable impact on the future ADEX and would actually accelerate the city's progress on the funded ratio. And that's sort of the very high-level conclusions drawn from the analysis. We're awaiting the final valuation report, which would be issued probably August, September timeframe, I believe.
One other thing, Secretary. I think it would be important to note in the actuarial report as of July 1st of 2019, Milliman was projecting a funded ratio of 43% as of 2026, with the additional money that is not included, but is included in the 5-year plan, but not included in Milliman's original evaluation from 19. Additional $2.4 million would be added. So from a funded ratio of 43%, they would be more closer to, a 50% mark should they make all of the payments as planned. So that would put them in a far more favorable spot.
Thanks, Kim. Questions and discussion?
Well, Bob White, I'm in favor of the plan. Just a question. I really think it's prudent to throw more money into the pension, but I'm wondering if there's any conversation about allocating some of that money to OPEB. that seems to be in more serious trouble. Again, that's a town decision as to where to put it. Either of them would be, in my mind, critical.
Mayor Frank?
Yes, Mr. White, we have had those discussions. There is a line item in the Allentown financial plan to include an OPEB contribution as well. I have spoken to a couple of individuals. We're in the process of consolidating, as you know, the oversight of our pension funds, etc. Initial feelings are that we can incorporate the OPEB fund as part of that overall investment strategy. So the city is moving forward, and that is absolutely on our radar.
Terrific. Good, thank you.
Could I just ask a follow-up, just to sort of put a finer point on it, and I think what Mr. White was referring to perhaps was the increase in the pilot grant, which is certainly tremendous good news for West Haven and for municipalities generally. But is that your game plan with respect to pilot, is to look at pensions and OPEB as sort of a first area to make sure you're doing everything you need to get those plans shored up?
Absolutely. The internal service funds are of concern to the city. So any additional funding that we have that we can safely, without jeopardizing the operating budget, the council will certainly have a discussion around allocating those funds towards the internal service fund deficits.
Great, thank you.
Question about the consolidation of the oversight of the various pension plans. Can you share your expectations on when you expect to have final selection and when the consultant can, whatever consultant is successful, when they can come their work?
Sure, absolutely. I've spoken to Attorney Karen on this. We did not receive sufficient responses to the original RFP, so he has put it out again. But the goal is to have somebody selected very shortly and get them in place. Personally, I'd like to see somebody in place before the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year. Don't know if that's possible, but I think it's certainly a valid target to achieve.
And to be clear, the RFP seeks advisory services of a consultant, an investment consultant?
Correct. Right now, we have one investment consultant overseeing the police pension plan, another firm overseeing the Allentown Pension Fund, and then along with the OPEB trust that's been established, what we'd like to do is to put all of those funds under one umbrella. And that way too, right, we should hopefully see some synergies as far as administrative costs.
Economies of scale, a good thing.
Gotta love
Thank
it.
you.
Other discussion? Okay, is there a motion to approve the City of West Haven's 5-year plan contingent upon City Council approval?
So moved, Bob White.
Thank you, Bob.
And second.
Tom, Liz.
Actually, that was someone else, I was gonna second that.
That was Dave Miller, I was quick to it that time.
All right, David, thank you. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Julian, over to you, please.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Waxenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Biller?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Felsigno?
Yes.
Mr. Egan?
Stay.
Ms. Shaw?
Yeah.
Secretary McCaw?
Yes.
Are there any board members I missed? Okay, that's everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes, and I just want to congratulate West Haven on a lot of progress over many years. Keep up the good work, and this is an outstanding plan. I'm sure you're going to stay the course. And I just want to thank the committee for your hard work and supporting West Haven to getting to this place. This is a great time to recognize the progress and the hard work that has been underway for many years. So with that, we turn to our final item for West Haven, which is just a monthly financial report for April 2021. And we'll turn it over to you, Frank.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. So, revenues through 10 months are at roughly 97% of expected annual target. That is in line with prior years. Tax collections are coming in at around 98.7%, which is higher than last year. The 5-year average at this point is just north of 99, so again, within targets. The lien sales for fiscal 21 are scheduled. They've been sent to the council for their agenda for this coming Monday, so that should complete the process around the lien sales. The forecasts that you have include an assumption that the lien sales will go through, so that there's no projected dip in the tax revenues, assuming that it does not pass. From the expenditure side, again, we're in line with prior years. Still taking a conservative approach as far as the city goes. The current forecast includes an assumption that all of the contingencies will be spent. Of course, as those monies are not needed, the forecast will be reflected. We are currently showing a projected surplus for the year on both the city and the Board of Education. The Board of Ed has confirmed a $145,000 give back that they're expecting to give back to the city at the end of the year. So again, projecting a surplus there. The West Haven Sewer Fund is in a similar position, very strong compared to revenues against prior years. Containment around the cost has been effective. We are projecting a surplus there as well. Again, right now, the forecast includes spending of all the contingency monies and capital improvements. We'll know more as I see, as I see the month progress. Allentown, we are currently projecting a break-even point for Allentown. We are in the analysis of trying to determine what their COVID impact was, to see if we can move anything out of Allentown into the city, since we have the funds on our books to cover COVID costs. The last item is an update on the audit issues, which are now being included as part of the normal monthly financial package. You'll note that still 2 items that are in the yellow, one being the pension plans that we talked about earlier, and the other being the approved vendor list for the city. So we do have a new full-time purchasing person on board. He has begun. He and I have had conversations. We have begun the process of trying to change the purchasing and accounts payable procedures here within the city, to tighten those up and to streamline wherever possible. So he has begun that. There is a project underway to do a substantial vendor cleanup for the vendor master. What we have found is, due to lack of overall process in the past, we have vendors that are in the system, in one case, 4 different times for the same vendor, using various spellings of the name or addresses. I think where we came off the rails there was no process that required a W-9 to set up the vendor within the system. It had never been, I'll say, demanded in the past. So obviously, when you create a vendor within Munis, if you try to duplicate the tax ID number, it's not going to let you. So we have put that into place. We have already gotten pushback from individuals who have said, well, we've never needed that in the past. Well, just because you've done it that way in the past doesn't mean it's the right way. So we are making progress, and I look forward to giving you updates on that as we move forward.
Thank you, Frank. Frank, with regards to the general fund, it looks like you're projecting revenues of $166 million and expenses of $165 million just for the city municipal side. So are you projecting a $1 million surplus based on this report before factoring in contingency?
$958,000.
Thank you, sir.
You're
And your budgeted contingency is around $4 million. Has some of that been spent? Page 6, I do see April year-to-date. I'm just curious on how much of the contingency really has been utilized versus is remaining.
Yes, some of that has been within that contingency area. That is where we are capturing all of the COVID-related costs as well. So on page 8, you'll see that breakout between what is COVID-related and what is truly contingency/other. I would say that there's probably $400,000 of pure contingency that if isn't needed, we should be able to let it flow to the general fund balance.
Okay. You are including in your revenues the $1.2 million of COVID relief funds, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So against the 5.2 so you really do have the 1.2 in the revenue. So at this point, is it fair to say then that on the expense side of the house, there's about 1.5 million of contingency that has not yet been confirmed to be needed for the fiscal year?
I'd have to go back and do a deep dive analysis, but it should be close to $1 million, I would think.
Okay. All right. So you're looking to close somewhere up to $2 million in surplus.
If everything falls through correctly, yes.
Understand. Other questions or discussion on West Haven's monthly financial report?
The town side of the budget, West Haven, I have to compliment as to their oversight and transparency as to how they're operating. My concern is the Allentown piece. Doing an analysis over time that they've provided here, it appears that this is a concern. It's a concern that I've had and members of the board have had since the beginning about these separate fire districts, and Allentown is the only one we have specific data on, but the other ones are similar, I guess. And specifically, the administrative side of the budget was about 60% administrative versus operations total back in 2018-19. It's now over 70%, in large part due to the administrative side, in large part due to the health insurance and pension. Health insurance has gone up over 100% during that period of time. Now, I understand health insurance to a degree. There could have been additions, etc. But it's clear that the town made its move to stabilize and mitigate future health insurance costs, which are helping its long-term prognosis, if you will, fiscally. My concern is if the fire districts do not follow suit, that there's going to be a significant reckoning. You just can't keep going up 100% every 7 years of health insurance costs without changing quote-unquote something, whether it's retiree benefits, whether it's the plan itself as the town does, and of course the pension they are addressing over long term, which is an excellent job. I don't know, we're not privy to the other two fire districts regarding their pensions and their plans. At least I have not seen them, and maybe in the works. So I'm just concerned, as I'm sure Frank may be, that some of these long-term obligations, like the OPEB, which I know they're putting $50,000 aside, but $50,000 aside when you have a significant long-term liability ever increasing is something that needs to be, in my mind, addressed. Otherwise, it's going to be a continued drag somewhere, whether it's within the Allentown budget or within the town side budget, because those, I mean, on the town side, over the same period of time, the health insurance costs went up 65 to 70% because of the change. On the fire side, went up over 100%. So I'm just concerned, and hopefully, and I'm sure Frank has communicated those concerns to the fire district chiefs as well, to try to see what future plans they might have regarding health insurance and pension contributions. I just had to get that stated for the record.
Frank, is there any clarification that you'd like to provide?
Sure. So we are continuing to try to move Allentown towards the state partnership plan. As you recall, we brought a contract adjustment before the MARB earlier this year that did include moving them to the partnership plan, and that was unfortunately voted down by the MARB. So we are still in discussions with them. I think the ultimate goal is to move them into the partnership plan, because they came up with the same conclusion, Mr. Waxberg, that healthcare costs are running rampant. The better we can control that, the better off we are as an overall entity.
Please do.
I remember that meeting about MARB examining that movement and the rationale we had for rejecting it. Now, their contract is up or in negotiations soon, if not now. My concern is that the town, and I'm sure the town will try to negotiate movement into the state partnership plan. My concern is that we not get into the habit that West Haven has had in the past, which is to go 1, 2, 3 years without, in negotiations without any changes, and then come before MARB for a contract settlement that is retroactive 2 years. There is binding arbitration. There are specific timelines that you as a manager, as management, can call for. So if you get into collective bargaining, and I'm just hypothesizing, and there appears to be some impasse, specifically in the area of healthcare, I would encourage you to take advantage of the state law to expedite that process and get a final decision for the future.
This is Michael Milo. Can I add something to this?
Yes, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White and members, aside from this discussion, I have been working along with the city staff with the 3 fire districts to put together a report that has been sent to you, but there has to be one modification to it. So you will be getting a report from Mayor Walkie, which summarizes the progress that the districts have made, 2 independent districts along with Allentown, and a 3-year fiscal plan for the 2 independent districts. The contracts come up to renewal, labor contracts come up for renewal a year from now. The Tri-District has been formed as of about 7 months ago, and one of the things that they plan to do starting late summer, early fall, is to collaborate on a replacement health plan for each of the districts. It does a lot of the things that we were successful doing with the city. They are looking at the partnership, and they're looking at other opportunities for savings. So they're very aware of that, and that is a priority of theirs. Also, when you get the 3-year plan of the 2 independent districts, you will see that they have made additional contributions for the OPEB liability, just as one of the districts has also made additional contributions to the pension plan. The second district hasn't, only because they had evaluation done recently and they have a level funding option which they're adhering to. So they're looking at the OPEB, they're looking at the pension, but they're also going to be looking to save some funding in the medical benefit area as they negotiate this contract next year. And they're working very collaboratively. And I think, at least based on what the fire chief has said, the Allentown district and their membership have still been very receptive and are still very receptive to the state partnership plan. We couldn't get a gauge on the other two independent districts, but they are pursuing that option as well, as long as it's financially feasible for them to go that route. So there is attention being given to this. There's the Tri-District Commission that's been set up, and so there's a coordination of effort and a realization that there are some options that they need to pursue as a group.
As well as purchasing as opportunities. So, the three departments have gotten together. Their goal is to standardize on a single apparatus provider, with the assumption that by able to go to this apparatus, whoever wins the contract, telling them that they expect to order, between the three departments, anywhere to 5 engines over the next several years, that should be able to get them some purchasing discount power, again, economies of scale.
Other discussion, questions? All right, great, seeing none, that's the last agenda item for the city of West Haven. Congratulations to you, Mayor Rossi, thank you, Frank.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Turn off.
Those that you have, there's a couple things I do have to go over with you.